Yeah.
All right, boys. Main event time. UFC Fight Night. Cannonier versus Strickland. The headliners of this fight night. Jared Cannonier taking on Sean Strickland in the middleweight division. A fight of consequence. Jared, the killer gorilla Cannonier, the 38-year-old fighting out of Anchorage, Alaska. I didn't know that. Did not know that. Did not know that guy is from Alaska.
He lives in Arizona now. But,
Didn't he used to work in like the oil fields or some crazy shit up there?
I don't know if that's right.
I don't know. I feel like he worked in some sort of hard labor up in Alaska.
You could be right.
Man, Alaska sounds like a crazy place to live.
Sounds awful.
Yeah. He is 6 feet tall.
He was cool. I would live there.
He has fought at heavyweight, light heavyweight, and now middleweight. He kind of was like an undersized-ish heavyweight and kind of like a medium light heavy. And he's a jacked and terrifying middleweight.
Yep.
His record stands at 15-6 with 10 knockouts, and add 2 subs to that. And he is coming off of a title fight loss against the great Israel Adesanya back in July of this year. Sean Strickland standing on the other side of the cage. Tarzan, the 31-year-old out of Anaheim, California, comes to middleweight from the opposite direction. Used to be a welterweight in the UFC and has since wanted to cut less, I suppose, and now fights at 185 and has found quite a bit of success. His record stands at 25-4 with 10 knockouts, 4 subs. He also is coming off of a loss against the new and current champ, Alex Pereira, back in July when Pereira knocked him the fuck out and handed him his second knockout loss of his career. All right, boys. Omar, why don't you take this one first to give us your take and your pick of this middleweight fight of consequence between Jared Cannonier and Sean Strickland.
So real quick, he was a Federal Aviation Administration, so the FAA. He was a air traffic control mechanic. So I knew he did something.
Yes, I knew that. I knew he was that. Yeah.
I knew he did some sort of tooling business there. I just couldn't
oil
put my
field,
name.
but...
No, not an oil field, but something with a goddamn wrench, I guess.
Yeah.
I think this is an interesting fight just because of the momentum that Sean Strickland has had. I don't really rank Sean Strickland super high. I think Sean Strickland is just a crazy person who has been able to capitalize on specific moments. He's had a lot of opportunities open up for him that he's capitalized on. But skill for skill, I don't really rank him very high. He's a tough dude. He's a tough dude that enjoys getting into a fight. But he's still a human being, and he still gets cracked quite a bit. And guys with power are still a real threat to his chin. And I think that's exactly what Jared Cannonier is. Jared Cannonier is somebody who can definitely put him out if, and this is a big if, we see an aggressive Jared Cannonier in the octagon. A lot of times we get a very tentative and a very slow Jared Cannonier that doesn't really put things together the way he should, doesn't push the pressure the way he should, et cetera, et cetera. So if we see Jared Cannonier come in top form, I think Sean Strickland is going to end up face down in a pool of his own blood. So I'm going to go with Jared Cannonier, round 3 KO.
Round 3 knockout. Okay, Mark.
You expecting Jared to be the favorite here?
Yes.
I am. Is he not?
Dead pick him.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm more okay with that than Sean Strickland being a favorite. So I'll take it.
Minus 110 both ways. I am starting to feel like Sean Strickland against power strikers is a tough matchup. Obviously, we learned that against against Pereira. And we learned in that fight that he wouldn't grapple. And since then, every interview I ever see him give, he stresses how he's not going to grapple, and grappling's for pussies, in the words of Sean Strickland. So I guess he is not going to do that, which, he is kind of well-rounded. So in his come-up, he was able to look good because we saw him fight a lot of guys who maybe wanted to grapple, and he was able to anti-grapple and beat them with his striking. But in your mind, you were like, all right, when he fights the guys who don't want to grapple, then he can grapple, like an Alex Pereira. But now that we're learning that is not going to happen, and that he just wants to be a straight striker, no matter who he's fighting, I don't love picking him against power strikers who are on a similar skill level to him, and Jared Cannonier is that. So, like Cannonier is very willing to exchange, and he is the more dangerous finisher. And I just think Strickland fights a bit too open, a bit too cocky, and I think Cannonier can find a big moment to put his name right back in the conversation. I do fully agree that he's got to fight aggressive. If he doesn't, I could see this get away from him just because of the volume that Sean Strickland puts out. He could easily steal the cards if this gets all the way to the cards. So I think Cannonier's got to make sure he fights aggressive. I got to think his coaches are telling him that simply because everyone knows Sean Strickland's a volume striker. Mm-hmm. So I hope he comes out that way. I think he'll come out that way. If he does, I think Strickland is open enough that he is there to be caught. And I will agree, round 3 knockout for Jared Cannonier.
He finds it. Okay. A couple of things give me pause about this matchup. I'm not saying I agree with the odds being a pick 'em. I do think that Cannonier, given his skill set, I would expect him to be the favorite, although Sean Strickland has a better record, much better record. Yes, Cannonier is a power striker, brings a lot of danger in there, but he doesn't have the attributes over Sean Strickland that Pereira enjoyed. I mean, you fight Alex Pereira, it's like fighting a fucking giant redwood. They're going to be standing eye to eye. I think Sean Strickland might have an inch on him.
Yep.
So yeah, and to Omar's point before, I was going to make the point myself that what can happen to Cannonier, it seems sometimes, is that he seems a little too tight in there, and you wish that a guy as dangerous as him would lean into that a little more and be a little more aggressive. Of course, easy for me to say. I'm not in there fighting. And you wonder if, I know, exactly.
The Mike Perry.
You go. Yeah. Go, Mike, go.
You go.
And I wonder if a style of a Sean Strickland, that sort of in-your-face, constant pressure, I could call it pesky, constant jabbing, shit-talking, might add to Jared Cannonier tightening up and kind of almost freezing. So, you know what, just to be different, I was leaning Cannonier, but just to be different, I will say that Sean Strickland gets out of there without escaping a knockout, escaping the power. Maybe he gets rocked in a round or a moment or two, but gets out of there winning 3 out of 5 rounds. And I'm going to say Sean Strickland gets a big win on his record against Cannonier with the UD. Could happen.
Would be big. And my guess is that the winner of this fight is going to get matched with Marvin Vettori. So there's a big fight on the line here potentially for the winner.
Wow. See, I would think, and then just thinking off the top of my head right now, I would quickly pick Vettori over Strickland. Because Vettori is not the kind of guy who gets frozen. Vettori will be like talking shit right back and being like, let's fucking go. And he's more of a tank than Strickland is.
One would argue that Vettori would get into a Nate Diaz, Donald Cerrone kind of match, though, especially with all that shit talking.
Who would he be in that matchup? He'd be Cerrone.
The punching bag.
Maybe.